Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nick. For this week's video, I am going to do a sit-down video wherein I'm going to answer or react to some of your responses. A few days ago, I asked a question on my Instagram stories. I asked you, what are the challenges or struggles you face when doing lettering or calligraphy? I got like a bunch of answers from you guys. I'm going to read some of your answers and then respond or make suggestions on how you could overcome these challenges that you're facing. I've been doing lettering or brush lettering for 5 to 6 years now, and I've experienced a lot of different challenges when it comes to creating. Maybe, just maybe, by sharing my experience with you, it might help you overcome or face the challenges that you're currently experiencing. Let's go straight to the questions or the responses. The first response I got is, not satisfied with my work after doing the work. I feel you. Still experience that as well. Most of the time after creating a lettering work, initially I'm very excited about the finished work, but after like a few seconds later, the satisfaction or unsatisfied feeling sinks in, and then I feel like my work is not good enough. There's so many things wrong with it. I appreciate that feeling. It's just a matter of changing your perspective on it. So instead of letting it discourage you from appreciating work or wanting to continue what you're doing, turn it into motivation to improve your work. If you're feeling dissatisfied, just look at your work one more time and then think of ways on how you could improve it. Maybe you could add something to it that will improve it or make it better, that you'll be very, very happy with it. Or you could take a look at your work and then try to identify the mistakes that you made so that you'll be aware of them and then not repeat them when you're going to make another lettering later on. Just don't let it discourage you. Use it as an encouragement to improve. Now to the second one. It says here, for me, strokes. It takes 2 months for me to learn them. Okay, so when I started brush lettering, of course I didn't get everything right away. It took time before I was familiar with a brush pen. It took time before I was able to control my strokes. I think don't be discouraged if it's taking you 2 months just to learn the strokes, because it took me more than a year to get things right since I'm self-taught. I know there are a lot of resources online that you could check and study that will help you improve your strokes better. But for me, you can't take away practice, because when you're doing your strokes, you want to be able to control the brush pen. You want your hand to be familiar on how it works. So you really can't take away the practice part. So don't be discouraged. 2 months is not a very, very long time. But again, if you feel like it's a very long time for you to master something, well, the good thing is it shows that you are determined and you really, really want to get better at it, which is something I think you should have if you want to pursue this skill. Next is layouting and color patterns. Hoo-hoo. Okay, so let me just first talk about layouting and then I'll get to color patterns later. So for layouting, if you ask me 2 years ago, I would say that layouting is actually one of the things that I really, really don't like about lettering. First is when you're going to create a layout, sketching the guides alone takes so much time, and then sketching them accurately is impossible. Creating lettering layouts is actually one of my least favorite things to do before. That is why I created the composition ruler, so that sketching my guide shapes will be very easy, and then making all of your composition shapes aligned, balanced, and symmetric is not impossible anymore with the composition ruler. So that is what I did. I've tried to look for a solution. Now I'm sharing my solution to everyone. So I think you just need to develop a little bit more patience. Just know that if you design or you plan your layout very, very well, it's going to have a very, very big effect on your finished work. Now let's move on to your second challenge, which is color patterns. So if you ask me, I am not very good at colors as well. That's why if you look back at my older posts, you'll see that I mostly work with black, white, and gold, because you never go wrong with black, white, and gold. But now I do try colors. And if you've watched my previous video, I shared an Instagram account that I check once in a while. This Instagram account shares different color combinations that you could use. So I'll put the Instagram account right here for you to check it out if you are having difficulty with combining colors. Let's move on to the next one. So the fourth response is space between letters. For this one, I'm not sure if you're referring to print letters or script letters, but let's talk about script letters first. For example, when I do brush lettering, I like to connect my letters. Sometimes it's really a challenge to make the spacing of each letter consistent. I also noticed that problem with my workshop students. So the tip I gave my students before was what I do or how I create my letters. I don't connect all of my letters right away. For example, you're working on the word word. So do your W with a connecting stroke, then O connecting stroke, and the R connected to the D. So what I do is I don't do all the connecting strokes right away. So I do the W, I leave the last stroke later so that I'll be able to position the next letter where I want it to be. Because, for example, you do a connecting stroke. If you do the stroke too short, there is a tendency that you're going to write your next letter too close to the letter. And then if you extend your connecting stroke too far, there's a tendency that you're going to write your next letter very, very far from the first letter. So when I do brush lettering, there are times wherein I don't do the connecting stroke right away. I do them all at the end. So if it's for print letters, I still have the same problem or the same challenge when it comes to spacing print letters. Since this is also a big problem for me, I tried to find a solution, and I think my new ruler fixed this problem, because one of the specific problems that I want my ruler or my new ruler to address or to solve is exactly this one. Because for me, using a ruler to measure the widths of each letter is just not my thing. But if you really want your letter spacings to be more clean, more uniform, I think you have to do that. Next response I got is spacing and centering. Is that even a word, lol? So I just talked about spacing. Let me answer centering. Okay, centering, I assume this is for making lettering layouts. So when it comes to centering your words for your layout, I think the only thing that you could do is to create guides so that when you're going to fill in your letters, everything will be aligned. The problem is, how do you create guides that are always center aligned? Well, if you have the composition ruler, it is designed for that. But if you don't have a composition ruler, you just have to measure everything. So if you don't want to measure everything, you could use a tracing paper over a graph pad or graph notebook. So it'll be easier for you to count like the spaces to make sure that everything's centered. But if you find it very, very difficult to do a centered layout, then you could try or explore different layouts, because there are so many different ways on how to build your lettering. So making everything centered is not just the only way, so maybe try to explore different ways. Maybe you'll be able to find your own style of making lettering that is not center aligned, so maybe it's something you could explore or try out. Next response I got is blending colors. So this is also one of the things I find very challenging. That is why, if you notice my work, I don't do a lot of color blending, but I'm sure my color blending skills have improved since years and years ago when I started. And the things that I realize I'm doing wrong, that's why I can't get blending colors correctly. First is I'm using the wrong paper. So before, I just use regular paper, and then I try to blend colors with Tombo's colorless blender or a water brush or a paintbrush with water. So when I tried that using the wrong paper, of course, by trying to blend it peeled off layers of my paper and it destroys the whole thing. So what I learned is use the right paper. The safest paper you could use for blending colors is a watercolor paper, especially if you're going to use a water brush or a paintbrush with water to blend your letters. So the 7th response I got is lack of time and energy to practice at the end of the working day. Wow. Honestly, I've been giving this exact same excuse lately. Yes, everyone is busy. We have a limited number of hours, minutes, seconds in a day. I feel like there are two sides to this. First is, if something is really important to you, you will definitely make time for it. But one can argue that you have a lot of responsibilities and what you do every day or your work is really, really draining. So it's really impossible to find time. The dog is very noisy. Where was I? Oh, my response to this is you don't have to limit yourself to only the end of the day for practice. You could actually practice anywhere you are. Actually, right now, I don't practice at night every day. Unlike before, when I started, I used to spend at least like 30 minutes to an hour just practicing one letter. Right now, I don't do that anymore because I find different time, different venues to do my practice. So I stopped limiting myself to a practice time that is only in the evening after all of my work is finished. What you could do is you could practice anywhere. For me, I practice at church. So normally I don't take down notes, but by taking down notes and doing it in a brush lettering style, I am hitting two birds with one stone. I am taking down notes and I am practicing my brush calligraphy. Sometimes I also practice at restaurants. Whenever I'm waiting for my order, I just bring out my pocket notebook and my favorite Tombow brush pen. Just write anything, just write anything. If the end of the day is impossible for you, try to find different times of the day wherein you could practice. I hope that made sense. Now let's move on to the next one. Not being able to land on a satisfactory style or layout sometimes. Okay, I think I partially answered that earlier with the layout problem, but I'd just like to add something. What I learned throughout the years of doing this is that when you're going to create a lettering piece, you don't jump into the first idea you have. So when it comes to creating an effective layout or lettering layout, you really have to plan everything. That is actually the topic of my workshop. If you'll get a chance to attend my lettering composition workshop, that is exactly what I'm going to share in that class. I'm sure if you follow a lot of different lettering artists, you'll see that they do a lot of different sketches and then they choose the best one and continue working on that. Basically, that is the idea. You have to plan your lettering layout and then pick the best one and then accurately or carefully execute or create it. Next one is art block and messy medium. Messy medium. I don't exactly know what messy medium means, but going to art block, I've experienced this a lot of times throughout the year. I could blame it on a lot of different things. I could blame it on me being very tired or being stressed about certain situation. I could blame it on those things, but how do I force myself out of an art block or a creative block? What I do is I just create. I force myself to create something without expecting anything big from it. I don't expect myself to create something really, really nice. So it's kind of like lowering down the expectations so that I will be less intimidated to pick up my pen and start lettering. Because of course, when we create something, since we spend so much time on it, we want to create something really, really nice and something worth sharing, right? So what I do is I just take out that pressure, just create something. I don't even use new sheet of paper. I just use my old notebook with some scribbles on parts of the page just to make sure that I won't feel the pressure of creating something nice. And then the more I do it, I just get to the point where I find myself back to feeling motivated and created to create. So I hope you'll try that if you're experiencing art block or creative block. Next one is time. I think I touched a little bit about time, but I like to add something. So for me, I also feel like I don't have enough time to finish a work sometimes, but then I ask myself, why don't I start creating something now? It's okay if I don't finish it, and then I could pick it up, continue it another time. So I try to condition myself to thinking that it is okay not to finish one lettering piece in one seating. Maybe just try to be open to that idea of not finishing something right away. Just take your time working on that piece so that you'll be able to enjoy the whole process more. I think I'll stop here because I've been talking for more than 30 minutes already. I have to spend so much time editing this later. But I hope you learned a lot from this video. And if you want me to do a part 2 of this video, because I still have a lot of questions or responses to go through, comment down below if you want me to make part 2 of this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this week's video and you learned a lot of helpful tips. Comment down below your top learnings for this video. I want to know what you learned, if you learned something from what I've shared. So just comment down below and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And wait, before we end, I would like to share one announcement. I'll be doing workshops every weekend of March. First weekend of March, I will be teaching a workshop here in Manila. If you want to learn how to create gold lettering using gold foil, better check out the details below because that is what I'll be teaching for my workshop here in Manila on the first weekend of March. On the second weekend of March, I'll be going to Penang. It'll be my first time there. I'm really excited for the food and to teach you as well. I'll be teaching improving your brush calligraphy, lettering composition, and 3D lettering. I'll be teaching at Smida Paper. Details will be down below. For the third week of March, I'll be teaching at Kuala Lumpur and Petaling Jaya. I'll be teaching basic brush calligraphy, gold lettering as well, and 3D paper lettering, something like this. 3D paper lettering. I'll be teaching these class at CZiply, and I'll be teaching lettering composition at Calligraphy. And for the 4th week of March, I will be at Jakarta. I'll be teaching lettering composition in Jakarta. I might add more classes, we'll see, but for now, those are my workshop classes for the month of March. The details will be down below. I think the registration links are still not up, but I'll put the dates and time below so that you'll be able to put them on your calendar. So that's it. I'll see you next week for another video. Bye. And on my workshops if you're there.